How's your week? I hope it's great. Mine is too. And I have an episode today that I think you're going to enjoy because every now and then I like to hop into the wayback machine and share a fresh listen to conversations that influenced our current times. The one you are going to hear today was recorded live in 2014. That is correct. Recorded live in 2014. And you're like, but Josh, wait a minute. Nobody was recording live design events in 2014. I was. And so the conversation you're going to hear today was from DIEM, Design Intersects Everything Made, a symposium presented by the West Hollywood Design District featuring Frances Anderton, then with KCRW, and Jeff Denby, co-founder, and then with Pact, a clothing brand. You will be hearing more about here shortly. The following conversation was really important then, and I think it's important now. It was focused on values-based capitalism and values-based consumerism. Economic models with a value, if you will, placed on profit generation that also generates positive impact, positive social impact. As you listen to this chat between Frances and Jeff, you might notice the feel-good vibes and high ideals that come from a focus on values-based consumerism patterns. Buy well-made products that come from sustainably based materials and made by people who are respected and valued. To those producing the products, and then by those who buy the product. At the time of this recording, this idea was catching on. And even now, companies that have a value system connected directly to products and service speak openly about the social capital being generated. I would argue that we hear far less now because sustainability has been linked politically to DEI. And there is a group of people who see that as more of a social ill than a societal benefit. Now listen, I'm not here to change any minds because I've been doing this long enough to know that if someone is dead set on their ways and think a certain way, nothing that I can say is going to change their minds. I'm only here to share a different perspective, one that I hope catches on again and sticks. And for these ideas, we can thank millennials. Right? We really can. Remember when millennials were living in their parents' basement? Sorry, I hate that joke, or that old trope, but it's true. And instead of having a whole house full of incredible things, you just wanted one thing that went with it. Maybe it was a new pair of kicks or a watch or a bureau or a sofa that made you feel good, and you knew the story behind it, and you could talk to your friends and family about that story, and it added value to your life in a way that's different than looking on social media and seeing, likes and clicks. It's different. This is one worth sharing with the hope that it will make a return. I hope this idea makes a return, not just in fashion or consumer packaged goods, but in the home decor and architectural material sectors. Things that Jeff and Frances talk about here: consumer awareness and the evolution of consumer awareness, philanthropy and social impact, challenges of domestic manufacturing, product expansion and market strategy, supply chain ethics and certification, sustainability and waste management, consumer education and transparency, research and industry collaboration. Listen, these are all lofty ideals and big ideas. And at one point in time, not too long ago, well, specifically 12 years ago, we were into this. We were talking about this, and the bloom is off the rose a little bit. And I would say that is due to all of the changes and chaos since March 13th of 2020, because that's when the pandemic started in earnest here in the US. And that's when our ideas started to change a little bit. And then we've gotten into government, societal ills, new administration, tariffs, and all the things that make focusing on doing well and doing good seem a little less important. Ethical apparel requires intentional design, transparent supply chains, and collaboration across the industry. And I would say that is exactly the same for the home decor industry as well. Furnishings, design, materiality of design and things and stuff for people who desire to live a certain way. Anyway, I'm going to leave part of the open to the original open so you can hear my voice in 2014 and realize that, yeah, this was recorded 12 years ago. I hope you enjoy it, and you can hear it all right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com.
Welcome to another episode of Convo by Design. This episode brings you number 5 in the 6-part Design Intersects Everything Made, or DIEM Symposium series presented by the West Hollywood Design District. As a designer, architect, or enthusiast of design and architecture, I think you'll appreciate this conversation, moderated by Frances Anderton, featuring Jeff Denby, Chief Creative Director and founder of Pact, at @WearPact on Twitter. They create and manufacture organic cotton wearables, socks, underwear, that sort of thing. And they do it using virgin cotton from a transparent supply chain. And organic, I might add. This is an important topic for all of us because there's been a shift in social consciousness over the products we use, the exposure of those products to those we love, and a responsibility to look after those that make these products for us. You'll hear Jeff talk about touring the plants in China and other locations where they don't put a premium on the people behind the products, only producing quickly and cheaply. Where's the balance between social responsibility and profit? You'll hear Jeff talk about using social media as proof of where the products are sourced, the people who harvest the raw materials, and activities that support their social and environmental message. This is an open forum. Social entrepreneurship. Very good or too good to be true. Part 5 in the 6-part DIEM 2014 Symposium. Thank you, West Hollywood Design District, KCRW, and Visit West Hollywood for making this possible.
Warby Parker, Buy a Pair of Sweats, Give One Away Free, companies that purportedly do all sorts of very good things with regards to the environment or the supply chain. and it's a phenomenon that's growing. I think we're all aware of that. It's a phenomenon that's growing. But how many of us as consumers really sort of understand what's going on? And if you're a business, if you are a design company, and you see other design companies going in that direction, is it something you think you should be doing too? And is it difficult financially, economically? Does it make a good business model? To what extent are some companies, maybe, is it just about the marketing, and is there not much behind the message? Anyway, I really sort of wanted to delve into this, particularly when there was a couple of news things recently. Perhaps the one that really jumped out at me was when I read that Tom's had been bought by Bain Capital. If any of you remembers Mitt Romney, Bain Capital was was that VC company behind him that depending on your politics was possibly didn't have a halo of goodness around it. So anyway, I was really sort of intrigued by that. And, well, I'm actually going to now start the conversation. Please have your questions ready. I really want this to be an open forum. Jeff is a fantastic speaker on this issue. He'll take anything you throw at him. So he's got a great answer. So we'll chat for a bit, and then we're going to open the floor to you. But let's start by learning a bit about Jeff. Jeff has come down from San Francisco for the Bay Area, where they're all changing the world. And he is the CEO of a company called Pact. Just start by telling us about Pact.
Great. Thank you, Frances, for having me. This is really exciting to be here. So Pact. At Pact, we make organic cotton basics. So we make underwear, socks, which you all got some socks, hopefully, T-shirts, hoodies, leggings, sort of the clothes that we wear every single day. And we make them out of non-GMO organic cotton. And we manufacture our products in a completely transparent supply chain. And what that means is in our manufacturing places in Turkey and in India, we actually start at the very bottom of the supply chain and source our organic cotton directly from farming cooperatives. And then we process it, gin it, spin it, knit it, dye it, print it, all of that processing that goes into making clothing in a supply chain that is completely certified to the highest level of social and environmental responsibility. And then we manufacture, we do the cutting and sewing in the world's first fair trade certified apparel factory. And then the socks are made in a wind-powered factory that uses 50% less energy than a typical factory. And so all the way along the manufacture of our products, we are trying to make them as best as we possibly can. So it's all about our process and our products both being sustainable.
What compels you to found a company that operates in this way?
So about 10 years ago, I was managing an industrial design firm in Toronto, actually. And we were making everything from forks to furniture. It was this stuff that we use every single day that we don't really even think about as being manufactured. No one really can name a fork brand or like a brand of potato peeler, right? But these are the things that we all own. And we were sitting in our very beautiful loft design office, waxing philosophically about the curves on the potato peeler, only to then throw it over the wall to China to have it manufactured. And as I started going over to Asia, I found myself in a lot of really terrible factories. It's one thing for a brand to find themselves in bad factories, but products that are rather unbranded kind of get away with it a little bit. There's not such a spotlight on it. And so I was in some factories that were pretty bad, and I started to really question about why it is we were doing things the way we were doing it. And I went into this one factory in particular. They were making tiny little metal pieces, little branded emblems that would go on bags or shoes, things that we don't even think about as having to be manufactured by the millions. And I walked in, and it was really hot, and there was really dark, and there was silica dust floating through the air, and the workers all had hands that were totally stained silver from handling these metal pieces all day, and there was nickel in the metal. And our agent said, this is the cancer factory. And I was like, very matter-of-factly, I was like, oh my God. And realizing that the workers had such high rates of cancer because of the conditions, I left that being like, that's it. I'm done. Like, we do not have to kill people on the other side of the world to make the products that we use every single day. And so that's really what was the impetus for me to go out and start a company that was focused on making things better.
Now, how does this affect your business model? Are your products more expensive because of this? And can you turn a profit?
So when I set out to do this, I absolutely 100% wanted it to be a for-profit business, because the point here was that to prove that you could do this business model. The world didn't need another company that made underwear and socks. But what the world needed was a company that would go and do it the right way. The idea was to go and actually improve the lives of farmers and workers throughout the value chain rather than exploit them. And so in order to do that, I had to completely understand how things were going to be made. So I went and spent weeks at a time in Turkey. I go to India constantly, and we work directly with our cotton suppliers. We work directly with the factories. And the reason why we're actually able to make really competitively priced products is because of the relationships that we're forming within our supply chain. You know, typically in the apparel industry, designers and brands, they hire agents throughout the world, and they send packets off to those agents, and those agents run around and try to find the best price at the most acceptable quality. And what happens is you've got a whole bunch of middlemen in between that very black box of a process that is adding cost into the garment. And ultimately for us, we go in and we work directly with a number of factories, and we stay for years at a time with them, and they really become our manufacturing partners. And that means that we're able to plan for years at a time with them, rather than sort of this factory flight by going to a different factory every single season.
It sounds great. I want to buy your underwear. I want to buy your socks for all the reasons that you've just laid out. But how do I know it's all true?
Because I said so.
How you said you're very transparent. Where do I find the evidence of this?
It's actually really interesting, because in a lot of ways a brand gives you what they want you to see, right? But we've got this sort of advent of social media, which has really changed the paradigm for how we're able to communicate with consumers. And when I travel, I Instagram the heck out of my entire trip. So when I am over in the cotton fields with our farmers, I am absolutely like taking pictures constantly, telling stories through Instagram, through Facebook, and our customers can see me there. And the authenticity and that evidence actually allows consumers to understand that it's real. He's really there. I am a person going to do this. And I think that being the face and the founder of the brand allows the consumer to connect with more trust than if I was just sort of like a nameless, faceless brand. And so I think that ability to communicate directly to the consumer, like literally standing off the grid in India and then being able to hit like send and connect back with our customers here in the US, is pretty powerful.
But we all met Alex just recently, Alex from Target. And then we discovered that Alex from Target was completely fake. And things can be faked in social media. So how do we know? And there was this Dutch woman who did as an experiment. She sent a whole bunch of Instagram pictures saying, "Hi, I'm in Egypt," and she was actually in her flat in Amsterdam. And so she did it as a kind of art project. She literally, you probably read about it. It was kind of an amazing story. So anyway, how do we, again, I'm asking again, sort of, how do we like get to the real supporting evidence?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Alex from Target is it didn't really last very long until somebody realized that the whole thing was a hoax. So again, the power of the community is actually pretty amazing, because they will find you out and they will drag you out from the depths of the internet and make sure that people know the true story. And I think that there's always people who are trying to manipulate, especially the internet, since it's so manipulatable. But for a brand, I think, like ours, it is about constant and consistent communication and authenticity and connecting directly with our customers. And if we keep doing that the right way, and what we're really doing is really the truth, then it starts to really like make sense to customers. It really starts to connect with them. And I think the brands that are doing it the right way are going to bubble to the top. And the ones that are only just marketing or not really that interesting in what they're actually doing are going to kind of fade away.
So is the process story attached to a product just more and more and more important than it used to be? It used to be you'd buy a widget and you didn't look into the supply chain or the ethics of the company owner or whatever.
Yeah, we're actually finding now more than ever, customers are really starting to be interested in how things are made. This is a real switch that we've seen in the past about 3 years, that questions are coming to us that are pretty in-depth and serious. And interestingly enough, they often are the hardest and the most strongest from our retail partners. And so retailers are really making sure that what they are selling is as sustainable or ethical or truthful or as authentic as the brand says it can be, because the first person caught is the retailer, right? And then it trickles down to the brand. Mm-hmm. And often we're working with really huge retailers. One of our biggest retailers is Whole Foods, actually. We work with Nordstrom, we work with Amazon, we have about 1,000 retail outlets across the country. And so people are starting to ask a lot of questions. And I think the other piece too is that, again, not to keep bringing up the damn internet, but people have such an ability to find things out and to ask questions. And so consumers now are going to continue to ask questions.
You are listening to my conversation, not my conversation. I was there from West Hollywood, California in 2014. We'll be right back. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. The design industry is in the midst of a generational and fundamental change. If you're in the biz, you feel it. I know you do. We all do. Just about every aspect of the industry is growing, changing, and turning into something entirely different due to a number of factors that, not to go into here, but between tariffs and supply chain and political influence, just clients have changed. Pricing has changed. Everything about the industry has changed, except for one thing: the need for strong design and architecture communities. And that's what led to the creation of Shelter Republic, an online community exclusively for the design and architecture communities, a place to engage with other like-minded creatives outside of the prying eyes of clients and the media. Wouldn't you like to belong to a nurturing community where you can have those real, challenging, authentic conversations, watch exclusive design-focused content, take free courses to level up your design business, hear from experts in the industry, guiding you and helping you move ever forward? And it's free to join. No catch. But it's invitation only. This is not like maybe some other programs you've heard of before where you pay a fee, a sizable fee, and go through a quasi-vetting process only to get there and realize that you're kind of just paying for an ad. That is not what this is. If you're a designer or an architect, you qualify. If you want in, email convobydesign@outlook.com and type Shelter Republic in the subject line. That's it. An invitation to join will follow. Call this the anti-social media platform where you can meet, engage, and share ideas in a safe, closed community environment of like-minded creatives. That's what this is. And like I said, it's free to join. Send an email, convobydesign@outlook.com. Subject line is Shelter Republic. It's that simple. And like I said, it's free to join. See you there.
So you brought up Whole Foods. I was going to bring up Whole Foods too, because you might have a company with a brand that one really likes for a lot of reasons. Say Whole Foods supports organic farmers. We love Whole Foods. Then we hear the CEO of Whole Foods doesn't support socialized medicine, say, and that's a value to me. So Tom's, say, one likes the idea of Tom's. Buy a shoe, give one to somebody who doesn't have a shoe. That raises some whole other questions. We won't go there right now. But anyway, then we hear that the founder of Tom's actually is an evangelical Christian who talks to the Family Research Council and then is bought by Bain Capital. So is that something also that one has to sort of take into account if you're sort of trying to build one of these brands? Are the individual values of the owner an issue with a brand that is about sort of ethics and values?
I think it's going to become a bigger issue as we move forward, and I think that brands have to be incredibly careful with who they associate themselves with. Earlier we were talking about the fact that it's no longer okay to be a racist sports team owner, and that empire crumbled pretty quickly, right? The tolerance in the marketplace amongst consumers for that kind of activity is really low, and they're going to again call you out and drag you out. And as this sort of world explodes of social media, I think it's really dangerous not to have kind of all your ducks in a row, and again be really authentic. If it's just marketing that you're doing, and people don't like to be marketed to. They want to have a conversation now with brands. And if you are an inauthentic brand, someone is going to find that out in some way. So I think, I personally think that it matters. It matters where your money comes from, and it matters where your money goes. That's my personal feeling on this. But at the end of the day, we're a business as well. So we have investors. We have people that want to make a return off of our business. And I think that the Bain thing with Tom's is actually super interesting because, Bain is basically looking at Tom's and saying, what a great market, what a great brand that's been built here. This is the kind of thing we would, of course, want to invest in. And then its consumers are saying So as an owner, you kind of have you have to sort of balance that. But the one thing I do think that's really interesting about Bain is that when they bought Tom's, they also set up a investment fund that would support future social entrepreneurs. So you have this very capitalistic conservative investment fund that's actually sort of taking a step maybe a little to the left and saying hey, there is an opportunity here to actually have good business and actually do good business at the same time.
Except, are they taking a step to the left? They might be going in for some kind of social justice, but are they still trying to sort of control the goodness? You know, I mean, would Bain Capital or people associated with Bain Capital support labour unions? You know, is it still about sort of maintaining a kind of private philanthropy rather than engaging with, you know, social justice through the traditional political means, say?
That's a we will see kind of situation, because I do think that is important. If you have investors coming in with their own political agendas and are crushing labor unions and stuff like that, I'll tell you, that is going to get out on the internet somewhere for sure. That like Bain buys Tom and Tom's factories have unions repressed, right? Like that kind of thing is what's going to get out there. And so once again, like it matters where your money comes from and it matters where it's going. And so brands need to be really careful and really need to realize what actually could come of their actions. I think it's really important to support strong social entrepreneurs that have the vision of doing the right thing for their workers, for their employees, with their products. And if we can support those people and give them a voice and give them a sense of power, then they'll be much more likely to sort of actually be doing good instead of allowing the ivory tower to control what good means.
Now, take, for example, one element of being good, environmentalism. A lot of companies, including our own, says we use wind farms and we have recycled packaging or whatever it is. And yet a purist environmentalist might say, well, actually, you're shipping gazillions of products from China to San Francisco, you know, sort of. How do you reconcile those kind of messages? You know, or in yours, you've obviously the supply chain is something that really matters to you. That seems to be your kind of core value, but you've also got the environmental piece as well. Do you sort of need to have all the pieces of goodness, or can you just sort of take one?
No, I mean, I think that you can't be perfect. I always say, like, sustainability is a journey, not a destination. We're still sort of figuring out what this looks like, and you have to solve the problem where the problem exists for your business. And so, you know, my belief and interest in starting this business was all about the things we use every single day. And I was looking at, in particular, socks and underwear to start, which is where we started, because that's what everybody puts on every single day and has the most of in their drawers, and also buys the most frequently in the market. So for me, I was like, if we can change the way these products are manufactured, then we're really going to have a great impact overall. And some people will say, well, aren't you just encouraging more consumption, right? And my response really is that we are going to consume. Like, the reality is that we are going to consume. We're a society built on consumption. If everybody stops consuming, I think our society collapses, right? So, I mean, I had a business school professor once who said to me, the start of the class, the very first thing he said was, okay, everybody, do you know why human beings were put on this earth? To shop. That is your reason for being. Which, you know, then we went on to go talk about global business strategy for the next, 4 months. But it was all about consumers. And the reality is that we are going to consume. So, but if we can consume smarter, if we can consume better, the whole idea of, I can't make underwear over here at the price that the market demands it, but we can make it in a really sustainable way in India, and we can make socks in Turkey in a really sustainable way. And by the way, sea shipping is actually a very low impact form of transportation. The worst, of course, being air, but trucking goods all over the United States is actually hugely carbon intensive. And then in the apparel sector, the largest environmental impact comes after the consumer has purchased it in the laundering of the product over and over again. So it starts to a lot of questions come into what kind of impact your product actually has.
It gets very complicated. I just want to say, I'm hearing something that sounds like a foghorn that keeps going off. If anybody knows what's making that little beep go off, it's the door. It sounds like the foghorn in Santa Monica.
It's been a long day.
It has. I live way yonder. Golly, that actually completely made me forget what I was just about to ask you, talking about the foghorn. But since I've just had having a brain freeze, let's turn to you. Let's now bring in some questions. Does anybody have a question? Here we go. Let's start here.
Really hard. So I traveled to a lot of different countries and met a lot of different people, a lot of different factory owners, and wherever I went, I wanted to see every part of the supply chain. Like in Turkey, I was like, "Oh, can you take me to the dye house?" And they were like, "Why would you want to go there?" And I was like, "Because I want to see it. I want to know what it's like. I want to talk to the management. Like, we're going to be partners, so I want to go meet my partners." And they were like, "Okay." So we went there, and of course, I had a million questions. And the dye house owner said, "Never has an American ever come and asked so many questions. We'll call you Mr. Questions." But that was part of my process, was to go and find out all of the places that our stuff is made, and that I think shows a particularly high level of authenticity in what we were really trying to do. But it's surprising how few supply chains in the world actually offer this kind of opportunity.
How can it spread?
We actually have a great store in Indiana. So it is spreading, and I think that is probably surprising for a lot of people to hear. But I do think it absolutely starts on the coasts, and that's where our best markets are. But one of our best markets is Chicago, and then the Midwest. We do our biggest business with Whole Foods in the Midwest. So I do think it's spreading, and I do think it's because the world is, it's tiny now. It's really tiny, and the message can get out so much easier to those parts of the world that some of us, we might think they don't actually have access to the internet or something like that, but they do. They're there, and they are interested in finding out more about where their products come from and how things are made. I think that where the food sector has been particularly successful in this, and Whole Foods is not the only, but food brands in particular have kind of started to tell the story about how food is made. People have learned that food doesn't just come from a grocery store, that it comes from a farm, so that's kind of trained people to start to ask questions about what they're eating. And then the next piece really was body care. People were sort of like, wait, I now understand what I'm eating, and I understand what organic actually means, but now I'm putting this on my skin. What am I actually putting on my skin? And so the next piece we really see is, what am I wearing? What am I putting on every single day? And it's taken quite a while to get there. And one of the things I think that Whole Foods did that was absolutely brilliant and was a really big piece of their success was that they provided an environment that felt really comfortable and really familiar to consumers, and they made it beautiful. They made the experience amazing. And so then that's one thing that we took away when we look at our business, is that design is actually really important, and that to reach people, you can't make hemp-colored oatmeal granny panties, right? I mean, people don't want that. People want beautifully designed products. They want stuff that will last. They didn't want me to reinvent what underwear was, right? They just wanted a product that was, and a brand that was really well thought out. And I think that's how you start to reach those people, is by providing them with products and brands that they feel comfortable with. Yeah, we've actually played with a number of different sort of philanthropic give-back models throughout kind of the history of our brand. It actually started off by, we would design a collection and we would connect that collection with a nonprofit partner, and that the designs, the prints and patterns and everything sort of were inspired by what they were doing. So it was when we were very young we did that, and it's not really scalable in clothing. But as a small brand, we gave away $250,000 to a number of different nonprofit organizations. We gave we have 1,000 LED lanterns to women in Haiti, and then we did this whole light-inspired collection. We helped rebuild a community center in Japan after the tsunami wiped out some villages, and we did this whole Japanese-inspired collection. So it was really fun and really interesting to partner with those nonprofits. And I spent a lot of time kind of being mildly uncomfortable with that business model of giving back. I just felt like there was something else. There was something else that we could do. And when I really started spending a lot of time in India, I realized that, wait, there's actually no greater social impact that we as a brand can have than by supporting the very people that make our products. And I think a lot of brands focus too much on external giving. And instead, I said to our whole company, I was like, we're going to focus on internal giving. We have so much opportunity to improve the lives of these people right here who we talk to and work with every single day. And to me, it's like triple bottom line, right? Like economic, environmental, and social. And if I can build a really strong, stable, thriving supply chain, then that's really good for my business. And it's really good for the communities themselves, right? So that's kind of how I look at dollar philanthropic versus marketing kind of dollars, like you mentioned.
I just want to throw in one quick point and then go right back to questions. That's interesting you bring up that sort of, I guess, old mode of philanthropy. You know, when I think of companies and philanthropy, you think of sort of, Amgen, and they've got their name on a university or school or whatever it is. That's not a model you're pursuing, but your name's still out there, but you'll put your name on your website, you'll tell your story. It's not like you're a shrinking flower about what you're doing. It's very much integrated into your message, but it's not Pact, big name on building, library, Carnegie, robber baron, but gave tons of money to civic space or whatever. It's a different kind of model of philanthropy. Is that old model still viable? It is. There's many companies that, of course.
There are, yeah. Yes. And we do need money to be donated to big things because it's not going to be supported by government or whatever it might be. So that those models still exist. What I do think is that it's more interesting, these models that are much more focused on actual, real, sustainable development. And that's what fascinates me right now, are the brands and the people that are really focused that way.
Okay, we'll start there.
Just what community needs this.
Yeah. We absolutely tried our hardest to figure it out. And to give you just an example of where it was important that we were charging price points that didn't mean that to be organic and sustainable, it had to be super expensive. My goal was to make a mass apparel basics brand to prove that we can do this. The reality is that was just not possible in the U.S. Margins, pricing, cost of labor, the completely fractured and sometimes non-existent supply chain just meant that it wasn't possible. Literally, the underwear would have to be $50, and we're selling a boxer brief for $16.99, a women's bikini for $12.99. That's competitive with Gap and with all these other brands. We want those people to come over to us. And so my personal opinion is that it's not... I'm not a huge fan of the idea that we can bring back a failed textile industry in the U.S. I think there's amazing, beautiful things that can be done here. Denim, really high-end denim. There's lots of designers doing beautiful stuff here, and totally encourage that. I don't see a lot of opportunity for mass production to come back. Maybe you could try to invest in it and with hundreds of millions of dollars to bring it back. But that's why we sort of focused on supply chains that existed around the world where the global apparel sector was, and tried to go in there and prove that, build a new model, build a new supply chain. And when I started looking at apparel factories in the U.S., the worst apparel factory I visited in the world was in downtown San Francisco. I walked out of it going, this is an OSHA nightmare. This place wouldn't pass a single certification. It's shocking. So, and the reality of how stuff is made in the U.S. is not really that pretty. I mean, it's made in maquiladoras along the Mexican border. A lot of those people don't have papers, and they get rounded up and taken back, and the next comes in. There's a lot of exploitation of garment workers in the U.S. It's a really tricky industry to navigate, and it's extremely expensive. So it's interesting, but it's a tough thing to think about. I know people really want like made in America, but it just wasn't possible for the product that we were trying to do.
I just wanted to know if you were going to expand. I have to say I love the fact of your company. You don't want anything that close to your body parts that are not made of organic materials. And when you think about all the plastics and the petroleum that our bodies are absorbing and whatnot, 80,000 chemicals are in our lives since the 40s, and it's phenomenal. With that said, will you be expanding your business? Will you be doing things besides just T-shirts or underwear and stuff?
We think we have a ton of opportunity in the apparel basics category. We are literally feel like we're just getting started, and when I look at the brands of old that or the current status quo brands out there in the marketplace, what I see are brands that were developed and marketed towards a different generation, and the next generation that is coming up, the millennials, who are now in their early 30s, are a generation that will be larger than the baby boomer generation and have a very different value set than the baby boomer generation had. And so they are looking for new brands that they can connect with because they're not connecting with the brands that currently exist in the market. And so we call ourselves the basics brand for the change generation, because we really see that is our future customer. We really believe that we can be a generational brand for the millennials. And so we're going to be hitting it hard over the next couple of years to really get out there and grow the business beyond where it is now, because I think we can take a lot of business from those other guys.
Sure, and then the gentleman behind you.
The first few days of your business, what are literally the first three things that you did?
What are literally the first things I did to get started in a business? Oh boy, wow. Well, if you want to start a business, it's really important to write a business plan. It's shocking how many people go into business without writing a business plan, and you will discover all sorts of things about yourself and your business idea when you actually try to put it on paper and create a plan and model out like the financial needs of the business. Generally, you find that it's going to be a heck of a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. The second thing you do is once you've got a plan, you go out and find money because it takes money to start a business. And I'll tell you the third thing that you should do, which I did not do, is to pledge to eat, sleep, and exercise as you are starting your business, because the first three things to go in your life will be those. And as an entrepreneur, you're running a marathon, not a sprint, and therefore you need to condition your body and your mind to always be there. And part of being clever and smart and on is also taking time to rest and eat and exercise. You don't have to lift weights, but go for a damn walk, right? So those are all the things I sacrificed for the first couple of years. But please don't if you're ever starting a business or running one now.
How many companies do you think there are like yours that are interested in natural textiles? Are there enough companies interested in doing what you've done to generate another industry, a good growing industry?
Yeah, I absolutely believe there are. There's a lot of brands out there that, young brands that believe in this, and actually just came from 2 days at the Textile Exchange Conference in Portland, and that is the largest meeting of the organic and sustainable fiber industry in the world. It's everybody from farmers to H&M sitting in the same room talking about this. The situation that we're in now in the sustainable textile industry is that the organic cotton has gone down, has actually plummeted in supply, and demand has actually started to go up. CNA and H&M will consume more than 50% of the world's organic cotton next year. And that means that there's sort of a supply crisis out there. So they have formed something called the Organic Cotton Accelerator, and CNA is investing $50 million into... Sorry, CNA is one of the largest retailers in Europe. They're sort of a value-based retailer, but very committed to organic and sustainability within their supply chain. Still sorting out what that means for them, but really interested in trying to develop organic and is going to invest a lot of money in it. Myself, our brand Pact is part of a coalition of brands including Loom State, Prana, and a couple of other mid-sized brands that have formed a buying group coalition in India where we're actually going directly to farmers as a group now of brands to make commitments at the farm level to get those farmers access to the market. And then as we prove this buying business model will be growing, it allows those co-ops to grow, to bring on more farmers. The one thing farmers are afraid of is, am I going to have a marketplace for my organics? So the industry is actually starting to come together and realize that there's an opportunity here, and brands are finally starting to work together because they have to work together in order to move the entire industry forward. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's lots of organic cotton growing. Not lots. There's organic cotton growing in the U.S. California in the Central Valley has it, and then up near Lubbock, Texas, there's quite a bit of organic cotton growing. Most of it is shipped overseas to China where it's processed. So the U.S. is exports something like 80 or 90% of its cotton to China. It doesn't stay here in the U.S. because we don't have any facilities that really process it anymore. It goes overseas, gets made into clothing, and then comes back here.
Sorry. Over there, by the pillow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's not in our business model right now, but I do think that it could be an interesting opportunity for some brands. I heard this really great story by one of the product director from North Face, actually, and they presented a story at this exchange conference. And what it was they went to two farmers, cotton farmers in the Central Valley in California. One was growing colored cotton, the other was growing plain cotton, and they decided to buy up their crop for the year. And the idea was to see if they could make a garment within 150 miles of the North Face head office in San Leandro, California. So they couldn't because there were no mills anywhere near them. So once they got the cotton, they had to send it across the country to a mill that was still running. And then there was no opportunity there to actually make the product, cut and sew the product that they were trying to make. So they had to bring it back to California to actually make. And he was talking about how difficult it was. And in the end, they ended up with this new hoodie that's retailing at $150. So and then the question from the audience was, are you going to make that hoodie every single year and do this? And they were like, well, we're still sort of figuring that out. We'll see how well it retails for. And in my mind, I was like, you just bought that two farms cotton for an entire year, and then you're not going to go back the next year. And that's not a sustainable supply chain. So I think I love that they tried to do that. It's really fascinating to try and do it, but it's very niche-y right now. There are some thriving industries like denim here in the U.S., and there are some great T-shirt brands in the U.S. that are making stuff here. But it's so fractured, and it's very difficult to make it. It's tough. And it's really hard. Question here.
We do think about what the thickness of the product needs to be, absolutely. We don't want people to have to buy special shoes for the socks. So, I mean, it's all part of the product design process, absolutely.
And there are some socks here, aren't there?
Yeah, hopefully everybody grabbed some socks. I'm not sure if there's any left, but I brought a whole bunch of socks down.
Gentleman there.
I just wonder if you had any systems in process, or your process for doing your things are pretty unique and very having a system to make people buy more and stuff like that.
You mean like a technology sort of system? Or
People understand what you're doing and the reason for it and all that.
yeah, one of the things that we're doing, actually, especially with this coalition, it's great that we have like brands like Prana and Loomsteak coming in, because now we have like a powerful group of brands that can actually go out to the market together and sort of brand our coalition, if you will. And so that's going to be a really great story that we'll be putting out next year together as a group. And I think that like there is more power in numbers if it's just us saying do this, but when you get these other recognizable brands, it's really helpful. So collaboration within the industry, I think, is a really great thing. And then to communicate the story, you know, people want to hear stories. People want to be told stories, and the apparel supply chain in particular is kind of confusing. Customers still think clothes come from a department store, and the reality is that, you know, they start in a farm, and when you tell people that, you know, what you're wearing is an agricultural product, they're like, what? Like, I often hear, I thought my clothes were made by robots. And it's like, no, everything you own is sewn by somebody at a sewing machine, right? And so telling their story and making them human is really the way to like get people to understand that like these people matter. These people are important. And the way that we're treating them is what you can trust and believe in as a brand.
What's my question was, how are you getting that to the public?
Well, and one thing you told me earlier, actually, is you're just about to relaunch your website. You know, now so much obviously is done online, and we were just talking about, you know, might there be even more engagement with his potential customers on his website where people can send in the questions, these kind of questions. And so, and even speaking at events like this, I mean, it seems as if you very much take advantage of the public microphone when you can, you know, which is as good a way as any to get one's message out.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is amazing. I mean, if you talk about a system, like the social media system is like absolutely the right way to reach directly to the consumer now. We can have a direct conversation back and forth. It's pretty amazing. Consumers really want to talk to you.
I was in the toy industry for a while, and I do understand what you mean about things that just happen. You know, how did Barbie get there?
Right.
You seem to have a very investigative nature. Turkey, other women answer to.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good point as to why it's so important to know where your stuff comes from and for the supply chains to be certified by independent third parties that are certifying against a global standard that has been developed and agreed to. So we only work in factories and supply chains that are certified by the Global Organic Textile Standard, which lays out all the things that you just talked about. And in the cotton fields, all of our agriculture is certified by the Textile Exchange Standard, which is absolutely what you're speaking of. Like, men and women have to be paid equally in the field. You're allowed to form groups and unions, and workers group negotiate, and there's rights. Absolutely. We have in our factories in Turkey, we have female supervisors. It's really about where you do the work, and I'm sure that there are factories there that do not have any of that. But that's why this is so important, because there's factories all over the world like that. I mean, we all saw the news about Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, and we've seen those like horrible images. The reality is that's what's really happening. And so if you don't know where your clothes are made and who's made them, then you can't be sure about how the workers are being treated. And so that's what we really focus on, is making sure that we go and visit those places, that we know that they're certified, and we go back and say, hi, we're here again, just to make sure that what we're doing is authentic.
We've got time for 2 more questions. Let's have someone who hasn't yet asked a question over there.
So we did a line of recycled socks, actually. So in the factory, there's tons of like yarns and stuff like that all over in a sock factory, and they basically sweep it all up off the floor, and we send it to a spinner that takes that yarn and respins it, and then we bring it back in, and actually has a really beautiful marled melange look to it because it's all these different colors mixed together, and then we make it into socks. So we turn that waste back into a product that we can sell. So that was one initiative that we had at our sock factory. And then a lot of the leftover material from the garment production gets shredded up and goes into mattresses. So there's a lot of initiatives at our factories to make sure that they're really reducing waste. Yeah, I mean, waste is cash out the door. So it's actually the first place where factories will really focus, is trying to reduce their waste, because that's just money walking out the door. And so factories are actually incentivized to find a way to take care of that waste. So I would say those sorts of programs are even more sophisticated and further along than some of the other initiatives.
So it seems like there are like 2 main parts, guys, working on some of your own research or anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of research that's out there about particularly cotton. It's it was about 25 to 30% of the world's pesticides are used on cotton. This is incredibly thirsty crop when it comes to fertilizers and pesticides, and then the processing of the product in a traditional supply chain can be really damaging with a lot of chemicals. So we also work with special dyes that don't have any of those heavy metals and stuff like that in them. So all of our dye houses have to be certified to use only the dyes that don't have any of this crap in it. Because the reality is that you are getting highly processed clothing, and what's in it is basically unknown. Lots of processes use formaldehyde, and then there's traces left over of formaldehyde in the product when you get it, which is a carcinogen. So I think that part of what consumers really need to know, and brands can help educate, and that's what we're really trying to do, is to let people know that like this is what it is, and we're like the non-toxic version of that. So that means we're better.
And that's where we have to end.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you, Jeff, for taking the time to share your thoughts back in 2014 and doing this. Thank you to DIEM and the West Hollywood Design District. I maintain to this day that DIEM was one of the best programs, local design-focused programs that I've ever been to, and certainly one of the best one-day events for the design industry in Los Angeles that I've really ever been a part of. And I miss those events, and hopefully one day they'll come back. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, TimberTech, Shelter Republic, the Best Buy Company. Listen, their sponsorship of Convo by Design allows me to seek out sublime design stories from beyond the work itself and showcase unique personalities, chasing new ideas, and changing the way we think about design and architecture, like you heard today from Frances and Jeff, and then present it to you. So please give those sponsors an opportunity on your next project. Thank you for listening and sharing this journey of ours. 2026 marks 13 years of constant publication of the podcast with over 700 interviews, thousands of guests. Couldn't do it without you. Please keep those guest suggestions coming, as well as thoughts about where you would like to see the show recorded live. Convo by Design at outlook.com and on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused and driven so you can rise above the chaos.